As the world's populations grow and cities expand, an important environmental issue to avoid is urban sprawl. The relationship between the built environment and the natural environment is facing a key transition due to the increase of development. So what is urban sprawl? It is the phenomenon where urban development spreads into neighboring regions. Here are some key characteristics. Low-density housing is when large amounts of land are allotted for single families. Dependency on transportation is a result as distances between cities, services, and amenities increase. This disconnect makes biking or walking much more difficult, forcing residents to rely on private transportation. Moving away from city centers occurs as the land directly outside the city continues to be developed, pushing open areas further away from an urban landscape. These developments are oftentimes poorly organized, and many of them have very little diversity. This pushes people to travel in order to get to work, school, or services and entertainment. As development spreads throughout the city, the line between rural and urban is blurred. Land that was once used for agriculture is bought out and forced elsewhere. It is also important to note that urban sprawl does not look the same in every city, but through these characteristics we can identify patterns. So now that we know what urban sprawl is, what causes it? At a base level, urban sprawl is caused by a combination of both socioeconomic and cultural forces. Some important causes are an increase in population, which causes cities to spread out if they were not prepared to grow up. An increase in income means that the growing population can afford to buy their own properties outside of the city and commute into urban areas. An increase in infrastructure has allowed for cities to continue spreading. The advancements in transportation and the decrease in gas prices drive outward expansion. It is a cycle of transportation allowing developments, and developments requiring more infrastructure. Conflicts in dense urban centers push people to the low-density housing outside of the city. This happening is also known as the white flight, where the middle and upper-class white population has the opportunity to search for their own land on the outskirts. The American dream ideology has also played an important role in the spread of cities. The value of owning land, and a house on top of it, has taken over the culture of America. Now that we know what urban sprawl is and what causes it, why does it matter and what are the consequences? Not only is the environment and animals affected by urban sprawl, but there are many consequences that impact human life as well. Through the destruction of habitats and loss of land, as well as an increase in air and water pollution, the environment is being damaged more and more. Some important consequences are the loss of health in the human population. When individuals cannot bike or walk places, they become sedentary. The inactive lifestyle of people who live outside the city leads to many health complications, including cardiovascular disease and weight gain. An increase in the consumption of energy. Cities that are more centralized have the opportunity to be more energy efficient in their buildings, as well as through their transportation systems. In order to fuel the demand for private transportation, large amounts of CO2 are emitted into the air. Along those lines, urban sprawl has caused an increase in air pollution. Not only does transportation pollute the air, but so does the development of buildings and roads throughout the surroundings of the city. This air pollution most of the time doesn't affect where the people live. Instead, it affects anyone living on those transportation routes, disproportionately affecting different people. Once natural areas are now being affected by urban sprawl as well. This adds stress to the ecosystems, migration patterns, and air and noise pollution. Land fragmentation is also an important result of urban sprawl, decreasing biodiversity and population numbers, and making movement much more difficult for animals. Coastal and mountain areas are particularly sensitive, as we rely on them more heavily for our resources. Not only are habitats being affected, but so are agricultural areas. Some of the best agricultural land has been transformed into residential developments. This competition between the two of them means that an increase in resources, fertilizers, and extensive environmental management is required. This also requires an increase in transportation and time in order to get the produce to the grocery stores. Soil quality is also affected by urban sprawl. The changing composition of the soil through pollutants and soil compaction in the development process means that it no longer can perform its natural functions. Like the concrete and asphalt, all of which are impermeable surfaces, Soil that is compacted does not allow water to soak in, rather it flows quickly over the top, collecting pollutants along the way. Another consequence is a decrease in water quality. The increase of impermeable surfaces, roads, parking lots, buildings, means that when it rains, the water collects anything that might spill onto them and take it into the waterways. Pollutants like oils, gas, metals, nutrients, and waste all pose harm to humans, animals, and the environment. Segregation is another impact of urban sprawl. The separation of economic classes, race, and age segregates cities and disconnects people even more. Urban sprawl is just a more expensive form of urban development. The cost of owning land and a home, transportation and commuting, infrastructure and different services are all increased when living outside of the city. Traffic congestion poses a huge problem in cities as they spread outward as well. Inefficient transportation systems and an increase in private cars means that more people are using the roads within the cities than what it was built for, taking time and polluting the air even further. There is also a decrease in social capital. Social capital is based around the idea of connectedness, trust, and reciprocity. A decrease in social capital is found where people are not interacting with each other, a break in connectedness, and longer commute times. This then leads to more unhealthy behaviors and lower self-rated health. Throughout all of these consequences, urban sprawl is still just as prevalent and continues to harm the environment. Looking forward, there are many things that we can do to stop and fix the effects of urban sprawl. Not only is over half of the world's population living in urban areas, but they also provide an outlet of growth, knowledge, technology, and innovation. Sustainability within development is especially important when looking at countries currently going through extensive development programs. Urban sprawl is not just the responsibility of residents, citizens, or the city alone. Together through policy changes and lifestyle adjustments, cities can combat the effects and increase of urban sprawl. Some measurements cities can take right now include brownfield recycling is a practice where a once industrial site with some soil contamination can be cleaned up and used again. It is a way to reclaim sites closer to city centers. Another is careful population densification. Finding a balance between density and resources means that a city won't tend to spread the way it historically has. Development along transit ways is another important solution to combating urban sprawl. Not only does it allow city planners to organize where people spread to and how, but it decreases the need for infrastructure, private transportation, and the pollution that comes along with it. Stronger planning legislation as well as educated and informed decision makers hold a big responsibility. By working to control the spread of development and the organization of cities, many services and the development of infrastructure can be much more efficient. They are also able to help assist struggling communities or sensitive areas. By providing incentives to developers, new zoning regulations, and designated protected land, they can control where they cannot build. Another option for city planners and decision makers is to adopt a mixed-use city. When a variety of different services, opportunities, and living options are offered within close distances, the need to commute beyond a local area is reduced. Controlling how much people use the roads is another important option to combat urban sprawl. By holding residents responsible for the cost of infrastructural development, or taxation at toll gates can dissuade individuals from moving away from city centers. Another option is to increase low-income living conditions and provide more affordable housing options. This encourages citizens to stay within the city rather than moving out. It is important to address the issues we have already created through introducing infrastructure made out of permeable surfaces, planning for proper stormwater management, enforcing zero-emission cars, and the concept of urban gardens through green roofs, vertical gardens, and community gardens. We can help control how cities impact the environment. It is important to understand that it takes a larger plan and multiple strategies in order to control urban sprawl, and that there is no one solution for controlling a city's spread. Cities will not stop spreading, and the world will keep growing, but with these changes, we can implement new techniques in how we inhabit the earth. The conversation of urban sprawl is not over, and it is our responsibility to protect the land that we have.